welcome back. Oh man, we have an author for you. You like sports books? Well, in many ways, this is a sports book. In every way, it's a good book and an award-winning book. My name is Vin Dacquino. Our guest, for you non-Italians, is DeLucia. For you Italians, it's DeLucia. Mr. DeLucia. Mike,
Nice.
Pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
We did a book signing together.
Yes.
Got to talk a little bit. Knew you had to get over here. You wrote a book that's been winning awards, getting a lot of attention. It's a book that's called Madness. And it's based on a true story, yes?
It is. It's historical fiction.
Talk to me.
All right. So I began writing this book actually around 1983. At the time, I was an actor, and I was thinking, I want to be in a film, and I want to be like Sylvester Stallone.
Oh,
so
there you
I'm,
go.
I'm gonna write a screenplay, and then for me, and then I won't sell it unless the studios cast me as the lead, which is so funny right now.
Yeah.
But back then, in 1983, it was a solid plan.
Yeah.
So I was at the family 2:00 dinner on Sunday, and I told everybody, I said, look, I'm going to write a story, I'm going to write a movie, and I'm going to be in it. And my father was like, I have the perfect person for you to write about. And I said, who? He said, Hank Louis-Eddy. And I said, who's Hank Louis-Eddy? He said, he's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. So I said, if he's the greatest basketball player that ever lived,
Why haven't I heard of him?
exactly, who is he? My father said, I read about him in this book of Sports First. He was the first person to score 50 points in a game.
Wow.
He said he lit up everything in the 1920s or 30s, and he revolutionized basketball. He made basketball into the game it is today. He invented a layup.
Wow.
So I said, sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I could do this.
Were you a basketball player yourself?
I had a hoop in the backyard.
Yeah,
I
I
played
hear ya,
intramurals, but I was more of a baseball person. But so I said, okay, this sounds interesting. Nobody's ever heard of him. That's always a good idea.
That's the trick.
So I went downtown, lived in the Bronx at the time, took the 6 train into Manhattan, went to the library with the Lions, and I went there every day for 2 weeks.
Wow. I know that feeling. It's what I do.
Morning until night. And it was like researching a ghost. No one had ever heard of him.
Wow.
I was looking him up in card catalogs. I was going through microfilms, and I started to piece together this little skeleton of his life through the back page of the Daily News, New York Times, and I found the time. It was 1936. Played for Stanford University, and as I was putting this thing together, I was like, wow, this is an unbelievable story. When I started reading what the papers were saying about him, that my father was right, and all except one thing. He did not invent the layup.
Oh.
Hank Louis-Eddy was the person who popularized and perfected the running one-handed shot in an era when people shot with 2 hands and passed with 2 hands, and that was just the tip of the iceberg for this guy.
So what years are we talking about? When was he most known?
They said that he changed basketball in one night. He revolutionized the game in 1936, December 30th, 1936.
Wow.
He did it at Madison Square Garden when the reason why it's called Madness is because it was the beginning of March Madness. Hank Louis-Eddy made March Madness what it is. He poured the foundation for it.
Wow.
Because a guy from New York by the name of Ned Irish has this idea. LIU was supposed to be the greatest basketball team ever assembled. There was no NBA in those days. They had no NBA because basketball had no fan base. It had a borrowed base from football and baseball season. So, because scores were like 20 points, 30 points a game, it was a defense-based game. So, Louis-Eddy all of a sudden starts this one-handed shot, and it's getting news, and the people from New York are not happy with this at all. One of the coaches, Nat Holman, says, I'll quit coaching if I have to teach one-handed shots to win. There's only one way to shoot, and that's the way we do it in New York, with 2 hands. So this promoter capitalizes on this, and he takes the best team from the West, which is Stanford University, with Hank Louis-Eddy, and puts them against the best team in the East, LIU, with their 6'8" center. Wow. LIU was so good, they were on a 43-game winning streak. They had historic coach Claire B. as their coach. They were asked by the U.S. Olympic Committee to represent the United States in the 1936 Olympics. That's how good they were.
Wow.
They actually turned it down in protest because there was a lot of Jews on the team. And when they heard some of the stuff that was going on in Germany at that time in 1936, they decided as a team to boycott the Olympics. But that's how good they were. Anyway, Hank Luisetti absolutely destroys them at Madison Square Garden in front of their hometown, and all the New York newspapers are there, and they're just looking at this. He captivated the entire place. It was 18,000 people in that place that night, and they started rooting for him. Can you think about this? Thinking about maybe going to Yankee Stadium and the fans rooting for somebody on the other team who's beating their team. That's the night they say basketball was changed. Wow. And Hank Luisetti revolutionized basketball, and he did lots of other stuff that I could tell you about if you're interested.
Of course. First, I want to know about, who's this other guy, this Mike DeLucia?
I am a Bronx boy.
Yeah.
I moved to Mayapack around 1991, started a business up here that didn't last very long. It was a party rooms and party supplies, kind of like Chuck E. Cheese.
Wow.
Before there was any of that around here.
Wow.
And it was great, actually, but I rented a space that was far too big.
Oh.
And the rent and the expenses eventually put me out of business. Before I opened my door, I had 100 parties booked.
Wow.
It was a really cool concept, but, you know, I lost the business because it was too much money going out, not enough money coming in.
Yeah.
I moved up here, and then I stayed up here, and then I was in, you know, several other busineses. And
by up here, you mean?
Mayapack area.
Yeah, Mayapack area. Okay.
And then eventually I opened up an acting school in Mayapack.
Wow.
Called Limelight Performing Arts Center.
Oh.
And I started off teaching acting classes to adults. And then I had this notion that I wanted to put on a musical, because when I was a kid, I was in musicals. So I go over to St. Joseph's, and I was like, would you like me to put on a musical in your school? And the principal said, I would love for you to do that.
Wow.
I put on a show there, and then those kids came over to my acting classes.
What did you put on?
Godspell.
Nice.
St. Joe's, Godspell.
Nice. Of course. I figured St. Joseph was going to be Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
That was the next one.
There you go.
That was the next one. So anyway, and then this Limelight Performing Arts Center grew, and we put on shows for 6 years. And then after that, I went back to school, and I went to get my education degree, because somebody came to one of my shows, and it was a friend of mine. She was a teacher, and she said, after the show was all over, she came up to me. She said, "You should be a teacher." And I was like, I'm a businessman. I went to college for 1 year. You should go. And I thought about it, and I reworked my life.
I did it for 35 years.
And I started a DJ business, something that I could, get some good money, without too much time. And I DJ'd my way through college as an adult at 40 years old. And I've got a job, and I'm a teacher, and I've been a teacher for the past 15 years.
Wow. What do you teach?
I teach high school English.
Nice.
9th and 10th grade.
Nice.
And then I took over the theater group, at the school. I put on, a couple of shows there, but at that time I moved to Somers. And the commute was really tough, and I was getting home very late at night.
Tell me about it. I did 43 miles one way.
Yeah.
Every day for 20 years.
Yeah. And I was getting home 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it was really, really tough. So I ended that, and I started a travel club in the school, and it's actually still around, and we travel over the world. But somewhere along the line, I resurrected. No, sorry, I'm messing things up. I got the idea I wanted to write again. And I had written, a screenplay to Madness. At the time, it was called The Hank Luisetti Story. I try to sell it here and there, and of course, with family and houses and businesses and going back to school, it always sort of wound up on the end of the to-do list. But it still was in my mind. And then, but I got this idea. I wanted to write a book about the Yankees.
Wow.
Because I was so angry, growing up in the Bronx.
Yep.
The Yankees were like our extended family. Like, we didn't talk about them. Like, we talked about them like they knew us, you know? Like, oh, yeah, you know, Paul O'Neill and Bernie Williams.
Hometown team.
Right. What are we going to do in the offseason? There's never a we here. But anyway, but I got angry when they opened the new stadium, and I realized that they moved the bleachers. I always sat in the bleachers. They moved the bleachers away for the money seats they could put in the front. Everything doubled and tripled in price. And
more.
and it got to the point when I was a kid, you can go to baseball games for nothing. You know, take a train, go to the Yankee game, not a problem.
It cost $8 a ticket. Now it costs you $8 for a beer.
Yeah, $30 to park.
Yep.
So I wrote a book about my beloved team called Boycott the Yankees, a call to action by a lifelong Yankees fan. And all I wanted to do was say, hey, you've created a corporate environment built on the money that the fans have given you.
Yep.
You're kicking us out, and you're making room for them who they don't even care about you, about the team. We care about the team, and it's our money who's, you know, buying the stuff, paying for the tickets, you know, cable subscriptions, being there as an audience, and we're getting nudged out of the stadium. So I wrote a book to say, hey, greed and ego is destroying my favorite team. We need to boycott for a little while and show them that they need to lower the ticket prices so that we can bring our families to games again.
Yeah.
I wound up on America's Newsroom. It was a cable, Fox cable channel. It was a national, you know, special, and I was on Curtis Lee was Drive at 5 because he's a big Yankee fan, and he was also angry at the fact that it cost so much to go and see a game. He didn't like the new stadium, as I didn't and don't and do not. So that was that book, and then I was going to write another book about baseball, which is going to be my next book. And then I said, you know what, before I write the baseball book, I'm going to take the Hank Luisetti story, I'm going to turn it into a historical fiction novel.
That's great.
And I did it. I changed the name to Madness, The Man Who Changed Basketball. And since then, it's been doing phenomenal.
It's a novel of sorts.
It is. It's historical fiction.
It's a novel. Oh, wow.
So I've taken...
That's great.
It says in the beginning, this story is based on the achievements of Hank Luisetti, who happens to be the first person inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. No, I'm sorry, the first player. The first person is Dr. James Naismith. The second person and first player is Luisetti.
Wow.
Never even played in the NBA.
I never even heard the name. I'll be honest with you.
Never even played in the NBA.
That's what I love about this book. I mean, the fact that you're going to bring to light someone who we just didn't know enough about. Someone who deserves to be there. I mean, that's my whole life right now.
Right.
I've been working with Sybil Luddington, and, you know, discovered that people in schools were learning about her 6 children. Never had 6 children. Her husband, Henry, didn't marry Henry, who was a lawyer in Catskill, wasn't a lawyer. And it took me 3.5 years to sort it all out. I am still fighting for civil rights.
Right, gotcha.
And trying to get her the recognition not only she deserves, but her father was a hero, her husband was a hero, and her grandson was a hero. And her husband was on the ship with John Paul Jones. No one even knew this guy's first name.
Wow.
In some articles and books, they were calling him Henry. They were calling him Edward and Edmund.
That happens.
It does happen.
It happens.
And it's up to us to correct history. You know, when I started this, people said to me, so you're calling the history books wrong? I said, yeah.
Because they are?
Because they are.
They are wrong?
You know, and with Luisetti, here's a guy who deserves to be recognized for who he was in the time he existed.
Right.
And bringing him in. Now, I have to tell you that I also wrote Hauntings of the Hudson River Valley about ghosts and spirits. And I talk about the fact that I don't see ghosts floating around my house. But I do feel moved by people like Sybil Luddington, who encourage me.
So that's the ghost.
Yeah. Her spirit is moving me to help get the recognition she deserves.
Right.
Her husband, her son, and her grandson deserve.
It's very interesting because you know, I say something like that in my forward, and I'll just read that little last part there.
Good.
Looking back on it now, I'm astonished that the desire to tell his story stayed alive in me for over 3 decades. Perhaps my stubborn personality was responsible for it. But I'd like to think it was Mr. Luisetti nudging me along every time I became sidetracked. Ever since that day, Sylvester Stallone inspired me to write a screenplay, hold on to a dream, and see it through to the end, even if it was a 1,000,000-to-1 shot.
There you go.
So it's a similar, situation.
Yep. 20 years I've invested into her. And am I doing it alone? I don't believe so. I believe she's moving me to do it.
Right.
And now, after all these years, I wrote the first book on her in 2000. Here it is, 2019, and I'm doing talks on my new book that just came out in April. Sometimes we're haunted by our dreams.
Right.
And I believe you are. Same thing with the Yankees. That's a good topic. And it's important for us to understand that sometimes professional sports are only as good as its fans.
Without the fans, there's nothing.
There's nothing.
Think about it. Would companies pay them all the money they pay them if they had no one watching?
That's right.
The more that people watch, the more money they get for their games.
And unfortunately, it becomes commercial, and the love of the game becomes the love of money. And it's sad, but it's true. But it takes people like you to get it down and get it into writing.
I can solve the problem. I'm going to solve the problem for Major League Baseball. I'm going to solve the problem for every fan in this country. You want a ceiling? You want a salary cap? Here's what we do. We're going to lower all of the ticket prices to our games 60%. There's your salary cap. Now when somebody asks for 300 or 350 million, you could say, well, we've lowered the ticket prices 60%. We can only give you 250 million. Can you deal with that for 10 years?
I have to tell you that in the late 70s, my best friend was Roy Campanella.
Wow, really?
And Roy and I went every place for like 3 years. I was still single, and he was in his wheelchair. I learned how to work with him. Became very close friends with his wife. Everything was wonderful. And one of the things that always amazed me, that every time he went out to do a talk, people said to him, how do you feel about these ball players getting $1 million and $2 million and $3 million to play? This was back in the 70s. And he said, well, I started off pretty high. I was making $42,000 a year. He was the best catcher of his time. And I mean, the Dodgers beat the Yankees in '55. I have to rub it in a little bit, Yankee fan.
Yeah.
But $42,000, and now they're making $42 million. I remember Dave Cash was in my high school, and the year that they signed him for a brand spanking new Chevy Impala.
Oh, wow. Chevy Impala, huh?
These days, it's a joke.
Yeah.
How many millions they make, but it's as you say. They said, Roy, how do you feel about that? He said, if the money's coming in, then the players deserve it as well.
Right.
Whether the money should be coming in the way it's coming in and being spent the way it is, it has to be fair. And that's what it is. If millions are coming in, then millions have to go to them. In those days, millions didn't come in for a game.
Right, right. Without a doubt. But, there comes a point where it's just down to greed and ego.
Yeah.
Because you can't spend that amount of money.
No.
And just because somebody else got paid $350 million, now
you
I
have
want
to have $375.
I want $375. Again, you can't spend
and they're
that
talking
money.
millions like dollar bills.
Right.
You say $2 million, no, $8 million. $6 million could have been a lifetime for people.
Hank Luisetti didn't have a Major League Baseball team to go to. After he finished college, he graduated in 1938. 1939, March Madness officially began. He was the beginning, and it officially began the year after they were the first actual unofficial national champions when they beat LIU in 1936. But there was no March Madness at the time.
Yeah.
And he got paid $10,000 to play himself in a movie with Betty Grable.
Oh my God.
That's how famous Luisetti was.
It's amazing. I'm telling you, I'm
It's a terrible film.
that I haven't heard the name.
It's a terrible film, but it didn't make a difference. They gave him in 1938 $10,000 to play himself. That's how well known he was.
No, that's the expense account.
Yeah. Oh, that's lunch.
Yeah.
So, I also have a short story. Short story is called Settling a Score, and it's about two brothers growing up in the Bronx in the 1960s. Two estranged brothers. Two brothers. It was an older brother and a younger brother, and they did not get along. The older brother was mean to his younger brother, and they accidentally wind up on the same Little League team.
Oh, wow.
And the story goes through what happens over the course of the season, and
Hopefully.
and it's,
with a nice happy ever after.
I cannot reveal the ending.
Where is the story? Is it in a book? Is it in a?
It's downloadable. It's downloadable,
Good.
and it's actually a free download.
And is that on your website?
Yeah, you can get it on my website.
Hey, let's put that website up.
It is booksbymikedelucia.com.
Okay.
And you could find Settling a Score there, which is free, by the way. It's a free download.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And
Nice.
I say, you should give back a little bit, so it's a free download. And then my other books are there as well.
Excellent. Tell me a little bit more about his private life. He was married? Did he have kids?
These are the details that eventually he gets married, yes.
Yep.
But I follow him from the time he's 10 years old.
Wow.
He's born with legs that are so bowed, he has Forrest Gump leg braces.
Wow.
And then there's a little piece in the beginning to sort of do some exposition, set up as he's born of immigrant parents, and to set up the whole backstory.
Right.
And then it cuts to him as a senior in high school.
Oh,
and then it goes from senior in high school through.
Now, did he play ball in school?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He went to the same high school as Joe DiMaggio. They
Oh,
actually
wow.
knew each other.
Wow.
He played for Galileo, and then he went to Stanford. And every year he was with Stanford, they won the championship. He broke the scoring record every year he played. His freshman team went undefeated. He was doing fast breaks at a time when people weren't even breaking. They say that he was the first person to do the behind-the-back dribble. They say that he he dribbled at such a high speed and maintained ball control, and just people at the time couldn't believe it. And they said he jumped up so high and stayed up so long. They said it was like he defied gravity.
Wow.
It's like Michael Jordan. And some of it is natural, but he also lived in San Francisco at the top of Russian Hill. And the basketball court that he played at was at the bottom of Russian Hill.
Oh, jeez.
And he went up and down that hill for his whole life. And they say that built his tendons and his ligaments.
Yeah, I could imagine it would.
Yeah.
Tell me we have a lot of writers who watch our show.
Yeah.
Tell me about when, where, and how do you write?
It's a great question.
Is it on a computer? Is it handwritten?
Originally, this story, the first version, is handwritten.
Yep, mine too. There we go, Mike DeLucia. Books by MikeDeLucia.com.
Yes.
DeLucia.
DeLucia, which I discovered when I went to Italy and talking to my family, and it's DeLucia, not DeLucia. What are they? DeLucia, DeLucia. So anyway, the first one was handwritten, and then after that, once computers came out, I
did the same thing. My first book, Kiss the Candy Days Goodbye, all handwritten.
Yeah, and then I'm working full time. I have a family. A teacher is a tough job. Unless you're a teacher, you don't know that.
You don't know, that's right.
Oh, it's summer's off, and you work half a day.
You should get hazard pay.
Yeah. So what happens, I just committed myself to it. And I got up at 3:45 every morning. And no matter what day it was Saturday, Sunday, summer, snow day, holiday, every day, 3:45 in the morning, and it was just a question of me scheduling out when I was going to write, but it was always on my mind. When I was driving, I was thinking about it. I was making notes. I planned my schedule so that I knew exactly what I was going to do when I woke up in the morning. Get up in the morning, it's not good enough to say, all right, I'm up early, what am I going to do today? I would plan everything at night. I would know the next day, what am I doing? What do I want to accomplish today?
Yep. Yep.
And I would just, I remember one time.
It's a wonderful world. It is.
Yeah, it takes discipline though.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, you can easily get lost in emails. You could easily get lost in I don't watch TV anymore. I haven't put my TV on since April.
Wow.
I have to make choices.
Yeah, you do.
How much free
Writing
time do
takes
I have?
time. I know.
And in order to do it, and to do it effectively, and to be able to pull it off, you've got to make sacrifice. It depends on what you want. If you want a leisurely life, when you can get up, sleep in on the weekends, and you want to do what you want to do, then fine. But
you know when I do my writing, and I did this even when I was teaching. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I would sleep for a while, get up, do my writing for 2, 3 hours. Sometimes it wouldn't let me go. So my wife would tap me on the shoulder and say, you better take a shower and get going. You have to be to work in an hour. And, you know, it's like you just pass it through. But for me, it was the quiet time. It was the time to get done. So, Mike, I have bad news for you.
What's that?
We've got about 1 minute left.
Darn.
Goes by fast when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
Final words to these people.
This story is a phenomenal story. Not only do people who like sports read this book, but it's people who just like a story.
Tell me about the awards you won.
I've won 4 awards so far. There's only 2 up on there now, but there's 2 more. The stickers are coming.
Wow.
The next 2, aside from these, so we have the Reader's Favorites Award. We have the International Book Award. The new Apple Award is not here yet, and I just won a Top Shelf Award over the weekend, so
4
I'm very
good
happy about
awards.
that. And
Nice.
yeah, so I'm actually going out to Miami to a big celebration for the Reader's Choice Award. Very excited about that. But yeah, it's a great story for everyone. People say they don't like, I'm not a sports person. I said, well, do you like boxing? Not really. Do you like Rocky?
Do you like life? It's a life story.
It's about life.
It's about life. Mike, I cannot thank you enough for being here with us today.
I thank you for having me.
I know that as a teacher it's difficult to make time, but you do it. Keep inspiring students. Keep bringing this man to where he needs to be recognized.
And same to you.
Yep. Pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of One-on-One with Mike DeLucia. Mike, our pleasure. What's happening?